New holiday in USA. I woke up June 19th, 2023 to the first nationwide celebration of an additional official federal holiday. Juneteenth commemorates the arrival of U.S. troops bringing news and enforcements of the now assassinated Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation to the enslaved people of Texas. In 1865, Texas became the final state to recognize emancipation, a recognition that arrived a full 2.5 years after the proclamation declared that all enslaved people in those states in rebellion against the Union were freed, 2 full months following the surrender of the rebellious Confederate States of America to the United States of America, and whose recognition required the arrival of federal troops to enforce the official end of slavery throughout the USA. Regardless of the holiday, my wife Durga and I already had 6/19 off work. 2 weeks earlier, we'd met up with our son, his wife, and our 6-year-old grandone who'd flown into Boston from Des Moines. The 5 of us had explored Boston before moving on to New Hampshire and Maine, and following our New England wanderings, Durga and I had driven back to Raleigh with the grandone for an additional 2 weeks of fun. Fun that included spending June 19th, 20th, and 21st at Carolina Beach. A trip to the ocean we try to give the grandone every year since he's about as landlocked and far from the sea as one can be in the USA. Juneteenth brings the official count of U.S. federal holidays to 11. The holidays include New Year's Day, 1870, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, 1983, George Washington's birthday, 1879, Remembrance, also known as Memorial Day, 1888, 1968, Juneteenth, 2021, Independence Day, 1870, Labor Day, 1894, Columbus Day, 1968, Armistice, aka Veterans Day, 1938-1954, Thanksgiving, 1870, and Christmas, 1870. FYI, prior to 1885, federal holidays were solely for federal workers in the District of Columbia. The size and import of federal holidays has grown mightily in the 150 plus years since they were introduced. Who and what to honor and commemorate has caused contention and dissent within the U.S. from our beginning, but the depth of the divide within my country was poignantly illustrated to me when I was a young teacher living in Atlanta, Georgia. MLK Jr. Day was about to go live, which prompted some of the other white teachers to begin ruminating on the need for another federal holiday. Commemorating Dr. King, any of my naysaying fellow teachers insisted, was worthy, but a federal holiday? When would it stop? This ingrained racism was voiced by people who knew they loved everyone equally, but they, like every one of us, were products of their time and place and burdened by subconscious beliefs and values handed down over generations. I heard blatant racists express far more egregious hatred and denigration outside the school environment as they would joke, "Hell, if we kill 4 more, we can get a whole week off." A joke that absolutely showed their true Confederate gray colors, as well as the depth of their intellect vis-a-vis getting a week off by martyring black civil rights equality activists whose birthdays would surely not be sequential to Dr. King's, and even if they were, would defy the new at the time convention of making most federal holidays fall on a Monday to create 3-day weekends rather than commemorating people and events on a specific date which scattered holidays throughout the week. Playing in the ocean with the grandone. The juxtaposition of who and what we commemorate, as illustrated by the arrival of Juneteenth as a federal holiday, popped into my head. Who and what we celebrate, who gets vilified, whitewashed, or canonized is brought home by the national debate around the role of education and particularly critical race theory. Questions concerning the appropriateness of continuing to celebrate Columbus Day grow as more and more people push for the USA to end Columbus Day as a federal holiday. People who believe we should stop whitewashing our history, stop cherry-picking our facts in order to include or exclude, folk who wish we as a nation had the strength to include the good, the bad, and the ugly in our history rather than leaving unsaid and unwritten the ugly parts of our heroes, such as Columbus. I was standing in the rolling surf, cogitating while watching the grandone play, when he got smacked by a wave which toppled him. As I said, this was not his first dip in the ocean, and each year he's grown more bold, more adventuresome, and I tend to stay close at hand for safety's sake, as opposed to hovering like a helicopter in an always present attempt to keep him from experiencing even the smallest of pains or ill occurrences. He fell, and I rushed to him and stood ready to lend assistance if it proved necessary. On the other side of my grand one stands a young African-American woman who teeters on the edge of helping him, her eyes darting between him and me. I offer him a hand up. He takes it, and I ask if he's all right. Coughing and unsteady, he tells me he is. And I look to the woman, smile, and say with complete sincerity, "Thank you so much for being ready to help him." She nods and smiles back, and as he and I wade back into the swirling water, I can't help but wonder if the woman hesitated because she didn't want to interfere with strangers, or feared that an old white man would castigate her for daring to touch a white boy, even a little boy she feared was in distress. I don't know the answer, but I do know the question remains 100% valid for far too many people. People who've experienced being judged based on the color of their skin rather than the content of their character. Happy Juneteenth. Let's keep building a better, more equal, openly honest, and loving America.